A huge thank you to Robert Bishop for sponsoring today's video on Patreon. Niv-Mizzet Visionary versus Sythis, Sauron and Vren. I think we're not doing too much of anything there. Now the question is, do we go Delay Blast Fireball? It's 6 to cast with the foretell cost. I'm going to be punished for mulliganing this because we've actually got lands, but we've got Surveil as well. Let's keep this. It's potentially way too slow, but sometimes that's alright in multiplayer. Let someone like Sythis take the heat from us. In fact, I've just noticed it's an Izzet, a Grixis and a Dimir deck against the Enchantress player, so Sythis couldn't ask for a much better lineup here. Because while black is getting some enchantment removal nowadays, it doesn't have enough to deal with a Sythis, I wouldn't have thought. Leyline of Anticipation starting the game for Sauron. Just some lands for our opponents to start off with, and we draw in 2 grab the prize, so that's pretty good to try and get us into something more relevant. Start off with a Surveil land, and on top we see Ancient Tomb. That gets our commander in a turn earlier, gets us all the lands we need. As much as I don't want to keep a land on top, I will just because it's Ancient Tomb. Lightning Greaves for the rat deck, an Urborg from the Sauron player, and you would assume he'd just pass through the turn in order to be able to play at flash speed. That means we can tap our Ancient Tomb for black mana now as well. Sythis into play on turn 2, as you would expect, and does have Path of Ancestry mana go into it, so that is Scry 1. So there we see an Ancient Tomb. Need to decide between the grab the prize and going for foretell on this. I think we'll foretell on this, and then we'll have a better choice of what we discard into this thing next turn, because I doubt we're going to be doing much of anything else. Professional Facebreaker being played at sorcery speed by Sauron. The Urborg fixing the black mana of the Dimir player as well, who is holding up priority here. Idyllic Tutor for Sythis, and decides to tutor up Karametra with that, so he's obviously looking for a lot of ramp. Okay, Thran Dynamo for us, so maybe we're not going to get a chance with this grab the prize at all. But could always deal damage with this and draw cards, so yeah, Ancient Tomb I think. Temple of Deceit, the first black land that we've seen from Vren. Does mean he's not getting out his commander this turn though. Sauron plays out the Nazgul for the first time, so is tempted by the ring, and decides to make the Nazgul itself the ring bearer. And the Facebreaker goes into the left against Vren. Probably the last player I would have attacked personally. 1 mana shy from the Karametra, so looks like this is a Shrine deck from our opponent. Go Shintai of Shared Purpose. This is the one where you get a spirit token if you pay 1 at the end step. Gain a life and draw, of course, so sticking at 7 in hand. Okay, another land for us. I was just wondering, with grab the prize, it's just going to have to be an offer you can't refuse, I think, unfortunately, because I can't justify discarding the Niv-Mizzet Perun. So let's drop a mountain. Good to have at least a couple of basics in, 1 of each. See if we can get through counter magic of the Vren player. Priority not being held up over there, but we've got double blue for Sauron as well. Our commander does hit, so now it can be a grab the prize. Discard a non-land in an offer you can't refuse in order to have this deal 2 damage to everyone. And hopefully we don't lose our commander here, because like I said, Sauron is holding up priority, but we do deal 2 damage to everyone, so drew into Rhystic Study, Reckless Impulse, and then we'll draw 6 more cards here. And there's a Fierce Guardianship, that's good. Got Reckless Impulse, we saw the Rhystic Study, Agate Instigator, Drakuseth and Solemn. So we're going to have to discard 4 cards here. And Evolving Wilds this time for the Vren player, going to fix his black mana further. We don't know how long this Urborg's going to stay in play, so probably a good idea. Black Market Connections we can allow down. Gonna just try and defend our Niv-Mizzet with the Fierce Guardianship. Bajuka Bog for Sauron, and gets rid of... I don't think we've got a means of playing things from the graveyard. Maybe we've got Mizzix's Mastery in here or something, I can't remember. Anyway, won't have access to those cards anymore. Another Lightning Greaves after that, and throws that onto the ring-bearing Nazgul. Nazgul to the right. Go Shintai deciding to block the death-touching Nazgul when it attacked in over at the Sythis player. Karametra going to cantrip the Sythis again, so managing to get that into play. This is triggered on whenever you cast a creature, so he's going to have to choose between getting his enchantresses down and the enchantments themselves. So surprisingly we managed to make it round a turn cycle with our Niv-Mizzet in tow, getting into another land. So might as well just play the Sulphur Falls here. Now I think it's going to be Agate Instigator followed by Solemn Simulacrum, because there's no guarantee we're going to hold on to this Thran Dynamo for very long. And that means that every creature that comes in is going to deal 2 damage to each opponent, so we'll have even more cards available to us. The Grixis player continuing to hold up priority and can play at instant speed, don't forget. So with the Offspring trigger we'll get a token that will come in and see the original Instigator. So 1 damage to each opponent will draw us 3 cards. Alright, getting into an Arcane Signet as well. I wasn't going to take any more damage to the Ancient Tomb, but we're only at 36. It's been a pretty slow game, so we can go for the Signet, and that ramps us ahead a bit. So then with the 1 mana floating, we can still go Solemn Simulacrum. And then the triggers will put the lizards on the stack first and ramp so that we've got a slightly less chance of drawing into a basic. 2 damage to each of our opponents means that we draw 6 cards here. Not sure if I actually put Thassa's Oracle or Lab Mana or anything in here. Draw into another land, a Crackle with Power, hopefully we can keep the mana up, a Razorkin Needlehead as well. And seeing even more lands along with a Fiery Confluence. So we have to start dealing a bunch of damage here. I think I'll go over at the... yeah, we'll take the Enchantress player down a peg here. Yeah, I think we'll go in at the Sythis player. It's between him and Vren really, because I'm not going to underestimate any opponent. It could be that Vren has lots of targeted removal, which is the whole point in that deck I think really. But I'm just hoping that that's going to be instants and sorceries that we can actually counter. Don't actually have that many counters available to us. Black Market Connections triggers. Decides to make a treasure. I think he drew a card there. He's gone down to 27. Got a Shapeshifter in as well, which will count as a rat. So Vren the Relentless into play. And there we see a Pongify from our opponent looking to try and exile our commander. So we'll go for countering that and force our opponents to use their other spot removal that I'm assuming they have access to. Maybe even Vren has another one in hand. Don't have Force of Will in here or anything like that. Maybe that would be worth an include if we're going to draw this many. Yeah, so it looks like we're forcing him to use something else here. A Reality Shift as well. So 3 cards left in hand. And down goes our commander. And we do manifest the top card. Let's have a look at this. It is a creature. It's a shame that we can't do it now in response to these triggers, but that will make the Instigators shock our opponents instead of just dealing 1 damage. Actually makes the Delayed Blast Fireball a lot better as well. Getting rid of our commander isn't necessarily, now that it's done a lot of damage and drawn us a lot of cards, isn't necessarily the worst thing, because as long as we can keep hold of our mana, maybe we can flip this round next turn and deal a bunch of damage to our opponents directly with something like this. That would mean 10 mana, which hopefully we'll be able to afford. Vren the Relentless saw a creature get exiled, so it makes a rat token, currently a 3/3. Oh, I'm thinking this is a damage doubler actually. It's slightly different, or very much different. It deals damage equal to Axonil's power instead, if the damage is less. So maybe instead of the board wipe, it'd be better to go for something like this. 2 damage to each opponent would be 4 damage to each opponent instead. And then we could get rid of some artifacts as well perhaps. Anyway, Sauron the Dark Lord into play. Could also just go for 1 into X with the Crackle with Power, and that would make it 4 damage. Or actually 5 times 4 damage. Yeah, that might be the play. Lightning Greaves goes on to the Sauron, of course. And the Nazgul turns into the right. And it is allowed through, of course. Doesn't want to lose out on the Sythis, so the Facebreaker makes a treasure token. The blue players consistently tapping out every turn is good. And looks as though Sythis is going to do the same here. See if he plays a shrine into the Karametra. No, it is instead Sigil of the Empty Throne, so Sauron will amass orcs for the first time. Sythis continues to keep cards in hand. Okay, so let's see just how much damage we can deal here. We draw into another land. So let's just make our land for the turn. A command tower, I'm not sure what different colours we need. We need double red for this. So flip around at her Axonil, and we'll, I'm thinking that this is going to be 5 times X damage. X is 1. Does it just make it 5, or is it 1 damage turn to 4 and then multiply that by 5? Got a feeling that's not how it's going to work though. So do we just wipe the board? got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we can still afford the double red for the Needlehead. I think that might be an idea. Gonna deal the full 5 damage with this thing. So anyone who knows the rules better than me, a Mass Orcs 1, that's gonna get taken out anyway, although they will keep the commander. Yeah, anyone who knows better than me, her Axonil, if we were just to put 1 into X here, is it going to be 20 times 4? Anyway, hopefully we'll see some Axonil interaction regardless, because this is going to enter with the Age Instigators, so wiping out most of the creatures there. So we'll just go for the Needlehead now for our 2 remaining mana, and give the Mass Orcs to our opponents. So if I'd sequenced that better, maybe we would have gone Needlehead and then the board wipe. Hopefully the additional plus counter isn't going to matter, because I doubt they're going to, if we were to swing in a Solemn Simulacrum here, I doubt they're going to block it and kill their commander off. So the Needlehead enters, triggers the Instigators, would only be 1 damage, but instead is going to be buffed up to 4 damage each thanks to the Axonil. So we get Vren down to 12, Celestia plays down to 16. And like I said, I don't think they're going to block the Solemn Simulacrum with this, so we'll wait for them to swing in at us and we'll block it with ours. Go into the left against the Dimir player, and it's just non-combat damage that Axonil cares about, so there's not much point swinging with the Instigators. Putting Vren in a tricky spot though, he is going to have to be careful because he does have to take life to the Black Market Connections, and he's going to draw a card and lose 4 life to this as well. Hopefully next turn we'll still untap with the God, because I will test the science of the Crackle with Power. If we put only 1 mana into X, we'll see how much damage that deals. Alright, so 15 cards in hand, which means we have to discard 8. Don't have our no max hand size anymore, thanks to Niv-Mizzet going down. Vren draws into the Needlehead, so it goes down to 4 life. Black Market Connections, probably only going to make a treasure. He can't draw to it, I know that. Oh no, he did decide to draw into it, okay. So, unless he can do something at instant speed here, I'm not sure what that would be, but countering a triggered ability is about all he could do here. He goes down to 1 and then loses 4 life to the Needlehead. So down he goes. Mustn't have been keeping a close enough eye on his life total there. So straight round to dealing 4 damage to Sauron as well, taking him to 16. See if he starts making use of that Ley Line of Anticipation. Hasn't made too much use of it yet. Another Nazgul for the Lord of the Rings player. So it takes the ring up to level 2. I always have to remind myself, whenever it attacks you loot. And makes his commander the Ring Bearer. Triggers Sauron as well, so he can discard his hand and draw. I wouldn't recommend it with the Razorkin Needlehead in play. That might have switched off his commander here if he's eager to see new cards. That would be 16 damage exactly if he were to say yes to that trigger. Sauron does swing in towards us, so we'll just throw the Solemn Simulacrum in the way of that, I think. Gets to loot with the ring, which does count as card draw, so Razorkin Needlehead and Oher Axonil continuing to really give our opponents a headache. Decides to discard a Rite of Replication. So 4 cards in hand, plays himself a Sol Ring, goes down to 3. And like I said, we'll just chump block with the Solemn and get ourselves into another land after just discarding all those other ones, so that's fine if the game lasts a little bit longer than we're hoping it will. Sythis interplay, haven't seen too many enchantresses, in fact we've only seen the commander, so gonna have to be careful playing the cantrips into our little combo here. Does gain 1 life from the Sythis, but that's obviously not going to be enough. A doubling season, well maybe our opponent's about to combo off. He's only got 2 mana left though, and that does trigger Sigil of the Empty Throne for the first time. Every time it triggers it will now make 2 angels. Hasn't made any use of Karametra either. Kenrith's transformation goes on to, amazingly, the Age Instigator. I think I'd definitely have put it on the God if I was my opponent, but he's able to make another couple of treasure tokens there. So they draw another card, and because of leaving the God in play, it's another 4 damage to them. So we only need to play 2 creatures into this thing in order to take out the Sythis deck now. Luckily for him, we're not all that heavy on creatures. It is a more creature-based variant that I've made. I made 2 versions of this. One was an attempt at a typical Spellslinger deck, but I think I like the idea of this creature one better, hence the reason that I'm running it. Alright, and there's a cheap creature we could play. So let's go for the Storm-Carved Coast, because I was thinking of going for the Niv-Mizzet Parun here, but let's test the theory of putting 1 into X on this, see what happens with it. Oh, of course, we could only do 1 target, couldn't we? Alright, well, we'll try it anyway. So, one target is this guy. I was thinking we could do one to every player previously, but that wouldn't work. So, amass orcs with the Sauron. X is 1, pointed at this player, who is at 12 life currently. Alright, and that takes him down to 7. So I think that, yeah, that was just 5. So, with 1 being buffed up to 5 damage, it ignores the Oher Axonil, apparently. So that's fine. Let's get down Niv-Mizzet Perun, I think. Amassing orcs again, and this will count as a creature entering, of course, so the Age Instigator is 4 damage to each opponent. Would have been interesting to get down the Gleeful Arsonist. That would have made it very difficult for our opponents to actually cast anything. I don't think it really matters either way. They've got too many targets to get rid of at this point, so knock the Grixis player down to 3, the Celestia player down to 4. It's pretty much just past the turnover, and during the draw step they take 4 damage to the Razorkin Needlehead. So this player draws, goes down to -1, and Sythis draws as well, going down to 0 unless there's something he can do at instant speed. Apparently not. Could maybe have gone Swords to Plowshares onto the Axonil in order to buy himself another turn. But yeah, I think that's about as perfect a game as we could have hoped for with Niv-Mizzet Visionary. Got it out reasonably quickly, and then it actually stayed in play for a turn cycle or 2. Can't remember now. But definitely a commander that you want to point all your spot removal at as quickly as you can, otherwise it's going to deal a lot of damage and draw a hell of a lot of cards for your opponent. It's cool to see Burn do something in multiplayer Commander though, not something that we see very much of. So hopefully you all enjoyed it. Big thank you to the patrons for supporting the channel financially. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.